Hi, my name is Justine from Reboot with Real Foods, and it is my mission to make it as easy as possible for you to make the transition into eating a whole food plant-based lifestyle. And today, specifically what I want to talk about is how to manage the seemingly huge time commitment it can sometimes feel is required to prepare the food that you're eating when you are eating on a whole food plant-based lifestyle. So you've probably started playing around with some of the meals and recipes, and you're thinking, who has time for this? Like, I don't have hours and hours to spend every night chopping and chopping and chopping and chopping. And I hear you. I don't have that kind of time either, and honestly I don't know who does. But when you're switching to a whole food plant-based lifestyle, you're learning a whole new set of behaviors and ways to do stuff. And it's the whole food part that can be the most time consuming when it comes to prep. A lot of the times when people hear whole food plant-based, they really start zeroing in on the plant-based and start thinking about what that means to their life. But it is that whole food part that sometimes takes the most prep and the most planning. So let's talk a little bit about what is whole food. And I'm going to just tell you a really simple way to think about it that's going to clear up some of the gray areas that may be leaving you feeling a little bit confused and frustrated. Okay, so just use this filter when you're trying to decide whether something is a whole food. Whole food is food that has the least possible amount removed from it and the least possible amount added into it. So that is how you would decide whether something is whole food or not. So an example of this would be, think of whole grain. So whole grains include the entirety of the grain kernel, including like the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. So whole wheat is a type of whole grain. White flour is whole wheat that has had the bran and the germ removed from the wheat seed. Okay, so white flour is found in a huge portion of foods that you buy in grocery stores and that you get in restaurants and all that kind of stuff. And this is true for lots of grains, not just wheat. And it is true even when something is marked as gluten-free. Gluten-free does not make it a whole food. It just means that it has no gluten in it. Okay, so when parts of a plant are removed, the result is a food that is quicker and easier to cook. So for example, white rice is the same grain as brown rice, but with the bran layer and the cereal germ removed. So without the bran and the cereal, or the germ rather. So brown rice takes much longer to cook than white rice. So unfortunately, the price that we pay for all this quickness and ease in cooking is that there's far less nutrient benefit from the food. There's far less of the parts of the food that are going to give you all the benefits from eating on a whole food plant-based diet. So the price is actually really high for that quickness and that easiness. So when you're trying to make this transition into whole food plant-based lifestyle, it feels like all the usual shortcuts are off the table. The quicker meal solutions from the grocery store are full of non-whole foods, like the pastas, the sauces, the mixes, a lot of the stuff that you're going to find in the aisles and the shelves in the aisles. And probably most of your old easy standbys are going to be off the table as well because they contained meat or they contained dairy or sometimes both, right? So what are you left with? That's the big question. Are you supposed to just make everything from scratch at home all the time? Or, that's kind of what it feels like, right? And that's when we get into that chopping and all that time that we spend in the kitchen. And okay, so the point of this video today is that I've got some really good news for you. There are some super quick tips and tricks that you can use to put together some really delicious meals without endlessly chopping and chopping and chopping. So what I highly recommend is building a repertoire of your favorite quick and easy whole food plant-based meal ideas. If you don't have this tool in your tool belt, that repertoire, then you're going to be super vulnerable to drifting back to where you were before you make this transition. All of the easy quick fixes are not generally going to be the whole food plant-based options. Okay, so you're gonna have to come up with a good repertoire of stuff that you can have on hand in order to not make yourself vulnerable in this situation. So I'm gonna get you started with one today. You'll notice in this video that there's a link to a recipe that it's actually a recipe that my daughter came up with that literally takes 5 minutes to prepare, and it's whole food, it's plant-based. We call it salsa lentils, and it is delicious. So enjoy this one. Stay tuned. I'm going to be providing lots of ideas for how you can make this work for you without feeling like you now have to spend the rest of your life chopping in your kitchen. Enjoy.